Is there a specific political conception that flows out of Christianity? So is it sort of is it the British welfare state? Is it, I mean, there certainly are very different versions that people would articulate over time. And do you have a thought on how specific that is?
Yeah, it's very interesting because in today's world, we assume with modern Western democracy that what really matters is that somebody gets voted for and therefore they have a mandate to do what they think they should do. In the early years of Christianity, when there was no question about democracy in the ancient Roman world, at least not as far as most people were concerned, Roman citizens would vote, but most of the Christians didn't have that kind of power at all. They didn't mind very much how people got into power. They did mind very much what people did once they were in power. And that goes back to ancient Greece as well, where rulers would regularly be put on trial after their term of office, almost as a routine thing. Wouldn't that be nice? So that we could just hold them to account. Now, here's the thing. The ancient Jewish and early Christian vision was never, we should take power and then we will do X, Y, and Z. It was rather, our task as worshippers of the true God is to hold up a mirror to those in power, to speak the truth to those in power, to hold them to account. Now, what's happened in our modern world is that the media has taken over that role, sometimes quite explicitly, usurping the church out of the way to say, we are the ones who hold the politicians to account because they don't seem to be very good at holding one another to account. And okay, I'd rather somebody who's doing it than nobody, but that's actually part of the central core task of the church in the New Testament is to speak the truth to power. You can see Jesus doing it to Pontius Pilate at the end of John's Gospel. And so the political vision isn't so much, here's a set of policies which should be put in place. It's rather, here's a set of things which are things we should hold governments to account over. And one of them is to do with the poor, and another is to do with health, so that this doesn't necessarily mean that the British welfare state is the best of all possible welfare states. It certainly isn't. But that something like a total community care for the poor and care for those in need, I think is absolutely basic. Very interesting, in the New Testament, already in one of the earliest documents of the Christian church, in the letters to the Thessalonians, written within 25 years of Jesus' death, Paul is having to warn people in church leadership about the danger of freeloaders, of people who realize that they can get a free lunch out of the church, so they won't need to work anymore because the church is a sort of welfare system. And Paul says, no, it's got to be clear, no work, no food, that you've got to, so the church, in other words, the church from the very beginning was a kind of what we would call a welfare system, particularly for the poor and the very needy, to the extent that already in the first generation that was in danger of being abused. People often say today that welfare systems are bad because they can be abused, and the answer is yes, they can, and you have to be savvy about making sure it doesn't happen. But so that I'm not saying that the British system is right. It's got a lot of creaky bits and silly bits and bits that don't work or work in the wrong way. But I am saying that part of what the church ought to be reminding governments to do constantly is to care about those who have no means of caring for themselves.